Defining Diabetes is made possible by InPen from Companion Medical. Please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise, and to always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. You're about to hear a snippet of an interview that I've just completed with Fiona Wilde. Fiona is a 22-year-old professional windsurfer who uses the InPen. So you're going to hear that little snippet right now. And then Jenny and I are going to come on and define a diabetes term. When Jenny's finished spreading her diabetes wisdom, Fiona will be back to tell you something about the InPen that I bet you don't know. Be honest with me. I'm 48 years old. How far would I paddle before I had a stroke or an aneurysm? Couple feet? Couple minutes? How far do you think I'd make it?
You can go as far as you want to go. That's the cool thing is that, it doesn't really matter. You don't. Okay, if you were to, jump off a start line and try and go sprinting, you'd probably be out of breath kind of soon. But you can jump on a board. You can go with your friends, your family. If you have a dog, you can put your dog on the board, go cruising around. Like, there's all sorts of different things you can do. It's like a bicycle. You have your people who go out and ride 100 miles, in the weekend, and that's what they do for fun. And then you have some people who have cruiser bikes or even e-bikes that, put a picnic basket on the front and go, cruising around. Paddling is the same in that sense. Like you can, have top of the line race equipment, go, for speed, for distance, for whatever, or you can just grab more of a cruisy board and go have fun, go exploring, maybe, paddle into a different place that you've never seen before, or it's cool to paddle out and look back at what you're looking at every day and just get a different perspective.
No. See, you're saying this is where people like you who are super athletic don't understand that other people don't have brains like yours. You're saying I would paddle out to get a different perspective, which does sound neat, except I would paddle out and then have a panic attack that there's no way I could make it back again. And then I would start imagining what giant Canadian fish are in the river that will eat my body when I sink to the bottom. Like that's how it would occur to me. That didn't cross my mind. Wouldn't it be great if Fiona's entire career was killed today as she can't get over the anxiety of thinking about whether or not a salmon could eat her? And she's like, I never thought of it before. I can't go back in the water.
No, I'm okay with
those.
You'll be all
right?
Yeah, I'll be all right with that.
So first of all, it's amazing. And you said something a while ago already that I jotted down, and I don't make a lot of notes when I do this, but did you say that there was a paddleboard race that was 13 miles?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when they say go, first of all, I have questions. Does everyone finish who starts?
Pretty much in the elite field. Yeah.
Okay.
In the open field, there might be a couple that pull out, but, it'd be more like a marathon in that sense.
Gotcha.
It takes a while. Some people, don't. Maybe some people just get tired or fatigued, and then you have to pull out. But for the most part, and especially within the elite field, pretty much everybody finishes.
How long does it take to go? Like the person who wins, how long does it take them to go 13 miles?
With that particular race, see, that's the other thing with water. It all depends on the conditions. If you have 13 miles with wind at your back and you're going what we call downwind, which you can kind of surf little bumps that the wind is generating the whole time, you're going to go a lot faster than if you have a headwind or completely flat water. So it depends. But in that specific race, that was in North Carolina around Wrightsville Beach. And that was about a 2.5-hour race.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you that I'm not 100% certain I could stand on the board for 2.5 hours. Like, take all the rest of it out.
Requires a lot of training.
I'm not kidding. Like, aren't your legs like super tired?
Your legs are exhausted. Yeah, most people think that all paddling comes from your arms and your shoulders and all that, but there's so much balancing involved. And your legs are your bigger muscles, so you might as well use them more. So by the end of it, my legs are shot.
Jenny and I are going to define a term from the podcast right now, and after that, Fiona's going to tell you something else about the InPen. I'm now going to ask Jenny to define something that's not a real term, right? It's something that was made up on the podcast. So you hear me say a lot that I have these kind of like tenets, these ideas that I use day to day while I'm helping Arden with her blood sugar. And there's a bunch of them, but I'm now just going to blurt one of them out and then let Jenny define it from her perspective. So what does that idea mean to her when she hears it? Because maybe she can add more clarity to it than my oversimplification. So where do we want to start? Because there's a lot of them. I'm going to start with, you'd rather stop a low or falling blood sugar than fight with a high one. What does that mean to you?
Overall, it means that it's easier to navigate carbs in to stop a drop or to treat a low. For the most part, there are some sticky lows that are sticky and nasty to bring up. But for the most part, stopping a low or treating a trend down can be easier because carbs work faster than if you're already high and at a deficit of insulin. A deficit of insulin is always, it's like you're behind the track. You're way at the end of where you need to be. And so you have to play catch up. And playing catch up takes time because our rapid acting insulin today is not quite the term rapid. It takes time. So it's easier, even though we've been schooled in this like fear of insulin kind of thing because, it can cause a low blood sugar. Lows are easier to treat and to prevent further dropping than trying to correct for a high that's rising really fast or stuck high for some reason.
Okay. This to me, I started with this one because this is my getting up in the morning thought. I'd rather stop a low or falling blood sugar than fight with a high one. It has to be your mantra every day. There's times it's hard because it can feel exhausting in the beginning, before you really put all the pieces together, and it kind of gets easier. But I partly believe that that's where the idea of being bold with insulin came from me. Like I thought to myself one day, like I just have to be bold and do this. I didn't think bold with insulin. I wasn't thinking in t-shirts back then. I was just thinking about how to get through the day. Right. But
or magnets or whatever.
Or magnets or buttons. It depends on where you see me. But no, seriously, like I think that's at the core every day. Like you have to just be in that mindset because when you do that, yeah, sure, you might have a couple lows, but I'd rather have a couple of lows a month and have 27 days of good blood sugars than have, 27 days of crap blood sugars and 3 lucky days where it actually works out for reasons that I don't even understand. Okay. Thank you. This is going to be really interesting. We're going to do more of this the next time we talk because I like hearing you tell me what I think. Your InPen app has information from your Dexcom on it. So you open up your InPen app, it knows what your blood sugar is because of your Dexcom. Do you then just tell it, this is how many carbs I'm thinking of having, and it suggests an amount of insulin?
Yeah, so I've set prerequisites of, okay, this is my carb ratio and this is what I'm planning on doing. And you pretty much put in, how many carbs that you want to do or want to eat. And then you give yourself, okay, it's suggesting this amount of insulin, and you're like, all right, I think that's about right. Or, maybe I'm going to have a little bit more food than that, so I'm going to give myself a little bit more. But it's nice because you can think of, okay, what do I want to eat? How many carbs are in it roughly? And then it's nice because I would normally just be like, okay, that for me, that's this amount of units. Whereas using that, it definitely gives me more precise, it just gives me a more precise number of like, no, Fiona, you actually need more insulin than that. You're going to go high. And so that helps me kind of alleviate a lot more of the like big swings of up and down.
That's excellent. But yeah, that's one of the major things that's missing when you're injecting, really.
Right. Yeah.
That whole piece of it. Plus now the InPen app knows how much insulin's on board. So in the same situation, except say you've had say you had a snack at 11 o'clock and you gave yourself some insulin. Now it's just an hour and a half later and you're going to have a meal. When you put in your, I'm going to eat 40 carbs, it takes into account the insulin that's still left from the snack, and it gives you a different dose if that insulin's still active.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And how valuable do you find that information?
Well, for me, it's huge because, a lot of times it's easy to just look at a meal and be like, okay, I know how many carbs are in here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how much insulin I'm going to use. But it's harder when it's like, okay, I already gave myself some insulin for food a little while ago, and I don't necessarily know how much, insulin is left or how much has been absorbed. And so then you end up stacking insulin. And for me, for anybody really, I think stacking insulin is one of the things you want to try and avoid the most.
Yeah. No, you do not want to have more insulin than you need in your body. That's for certain.
No.
Over the next several weeks, you'll be hearing a lot more from Fiona. I'll be sharing with you small clips from her interview with me, which will go live at the end of this little thing we're doing here with Companion Medical. And she's going to be sharing tips about how she uses the InPen at the end of these episodes. So you can check them out at companionmedical.com, but there is, of course, links in your show notes of your podcast player and at juiceboxpodcast.com. I'm not going to lie, if you go through those, Companion Medical will know you're coming from the podcast, which would really help. Hey, you can check Fiona out on Instagram at Fiona_Wilde, and Wilde is Wilde. There's also a link in your show notes for Fiona's Instagram account. She does some pretty amazing stuff for a human being, especially considering she's doing it on a piece of what appears to be styrofoam over a giant body of water. Thanks so much for the recent reviews that you guys left on iTunes. They were completely sweet and wonderful. I hope you're enjoying the Juicebox Podcast. I hope you've checked out the private and public Facebook groups. And, of course, followed me on Instagram at Juicebox Podcast. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next week.
Hey, this is Fiona Wilde, and the Juicebox Podcast is super cruisy.